Last speaker will be Albert Fati, and he'll talk about smoother critical subsolutions to the Hamilton-Jacobi equation.
It's a pleasure to be here for the third edition of this workshop and to give the last lecture for the third time. I don't need a microphone.
Okay, so as usual, I'm giving the last lecture, and as usual, I know why. I am, of course, the oldest here. but, I mean, there is a saying which also says the following thing. It's a saying from Rashi, who was a commentator of the Bible, and he was explaining why Jacob was putting his son Joseph at the end when he went to see his brother Esau, and in Hebrew it says, Acharon, Acharon Chaviv, which means the last of the last is the beloved. So I prefer this version of fact. Okay, now, of course, I'm giving the last lecture of the workshop for the third time, but I resist the fact to tell you, let me start at the point where I finished last time, so I'm going to explain to you everything from scratch. In fact, the topic is different. So the setting is always the following. We take a Hamiltonian on the cotangent bundle of a manifold. We assume here that M is compact connected, okay, and boundaryless. And we will assume some assumption on H. H is an optical Ortonelli Hamiltonian. What does this mean? It means that, well, first H, let's say, is CR with R at least 2. Second thing is that the second derivative with respect to the vertical variable, so in Tm, X is coordinate of a base point and P denotes momentum, is definite positive. And we have some third condition, which is superlinearity. Okay, so h of xp grows faster than any linear expression as the norm of p goes to infinity. This, of course, does not depend on the choice of the norm on the cotangent bundle because the base is compact. Okay, so, of course, an example is the following. Okay, it's kinetic energy and potential energy. Okay, and sorry, there is a square, of course. And in fact, it's not exactly what I'm going to say is going to be a little bit trivial for this one. But what you can do is, if omega is a form, you can also look at h omega xp, which is one form, which is going to be 1/2 of p plus omega x, x squared plus vx. Okay, in particular, when omega is a closed form, you get more things which related to the same Hamiltonian. Okay, now we have the Magnier critical value, C of 0, which we can define in the following way. Infimum for u in C1 function defined on M of the supremum of H on the graph of the derivative. Okay? And so this is Magnier's critical value. And if you look at the example here, This one, in fact, I'll put CH, C sub H to indicate the Hamiltonian, well, this is the maximum of V. In that case, you can compute. Not for H sub omega, of course, but... Okay. Now, what is a critical subsolution? Well, if you want to look at what would be a subsolution of some Hamilton-Jacobi equation, it would be a function satisfying that, preferably C1. And of course, I mean, the real challenge is the minimum such possible things, which is C of 0. Yeah? So if you look for solution, you would first look for subsolution, and then, okay. So a critical subsolution is a function, a critical subsolution well defined on some open set is a Lipschitz function, or locally Lipschitz, I should say, because the set is open, is locally Lipschitz, such that h of x dxu is less than C of 0 almost everywhere. Lebesgue almost everywhere. Well, a Lipschitz function has a derivative almost everywhere by Rademacher's theorem, and therefore this condition makes sense. Okay, and what I will call a global critical subsolution, well, it's a critical subsolution which is defined on M itself. Okay, I'll write for short global critical subsolution, GCS. Okay. Now, in the example, it's easy to give a critical subsolution, a global critical subsolution, which is even C infinite. In the example for H here, is to take simply U equal constant, yeah? Then you get h of x dxu is h of x 0, and obviously this is v of x, which is less than the maximum of v. Okay. So, in general, you cannot hope to get C infinite subsolution. What you get is what is more or less easy to get at first, is to get a Lipschitz, such a global critical subsolution which is Lipschitz. You just take here a sequence which tends to the infimum, then this sequence is going to be equi-Lipschitz. You can extract a converging subsequence while subtracting a constant and so on. And this limit will be in fact a Lipschitz global critical subsolution. But in fact, there is better. There is a theorem which is due to Patrick Bernard, which states that there is always a C11 global critical subsolution. Okay, so C11 means it's a C1 function and the derivative is Lipschitz, or locally Lipschitz. Okay, and it's optimal. Okay? Still, there is a problem which is to try to understand when there are smoother than C11 critical subsolution. Well, of course, it's a problem. It's a question that you can ask yourself. But, I mean, these subsolutions are quite important tools to study the dynamical part of the Hamiltonian system, which is concerned by Aubry-Mather theory. And knowing that the solution is smoother is sometimes more helpful. And so problem, when does there exist smoother global critical subsolution? Of course, for most of the point, finding a better local critical subsolution is not a problem. I mean, there is only one part where things are going to concentrate. And in fact, this is the Aubry set, or rather the projected Aubry set. Let me define that for you. So it's not the usual definition, but if I have to give you the usual definition, I will have to introduce the Lagrangian, go over a lot of things. So let me give you an equivalent definition. And the equivalent definition is the following one. So this Aubry set is a set A of point X for which there exists Px, a covector, such that for every U from M into R global critical subsolution, the derivative of X at U exists and is equal to Px. It might seem like a completely crazy definition. Of course, it's crazy, but in fact, this is not the original definition of the Aubry set. It's a theorem that it satisfies that. Okay? So anyway, I prefer to give it because this is exactly what we are interested in. Now, if you put such a crazy definition, you can hardly expect that A is not empty. But in fact, it's a theorem which is one should attribute to Mather. I mean, he proved it for the different definition, but that's it. It's anyway, it's A is non-empty and compact. Okay? In fact, there is more to this story. One can above, so we have the projection from T star M onto M, and here we have A, but above it there is A tilde, which is in fact the Aubry set, not the projected Aubry set, and it is the set of X Px for X in A, okay, and Px given in the definition. Given in the definition. So it's the common derivative of all global subcritical solution at that point. Okay, and so Mather introduced that set because in fact it's invariant. Well, I did not really introduce that set. In fact, it's Aubry who introduced the set in dimension for twist maps. This set is different from the set Mather introduced. But anyway, this is the right set to look at today. And in fact, A tilde is invariant under the Hamiltonian flow phi ht of H. Okay? So related to dynamics. And obviously, A tilde is a graph over A, I mean, because Px is unique. And now, let me just tell you what is A in the example of kinetic energy plus potential. Well, in fact, A is the set X where V reaches its maximum. Okay, you see there is only one possible candidate. If you reach the maximum here, is that the derivative is 0. And, well, what is A tilde? Well, as I said, I mean, there is only one candidate above. So A tilde is a set of x 0 with Vx equals the maximum of V. Okay? So, as I said, there are obstructions to the possibility of finding smooth subsolution, critical subsolution. And here is one which comes from Danjois theory. So Danjois theory of diffeomorphism or flows on surfaces as it was generalized to by Schwartz give you the following thing. So it comes from the Danjois-Schwartz theorem. Okay, so see this A tilde has some dynamics, and in fact the dynamics, you can embed it in the dynamics of the base. So if the base is of small dimension, you are going to have restriction if you can embed it in a smooth dynamic. So suppose H is C3, okay, and M is a surface of genus at least 2. Of course, there is a version on the torus, but on the torus, Danjois theory allows you a little bit more than on the surface of genus 2. If U is a C3 global critical subsolution, then the recurrent orbits of A tilde for, well, recurrent for phi ht, of course, for the Hamiltonian flow, are periodic orbits or fixed point, okay? I mean, when I say periodic orbit, period can be 0. So you see, I mean, usually the Aubry set is more complicated than a bunch of orbits, or it can be at least, but in that case, you see that, well, you are not going to be able to find critical smooth subsolution if the dynamics on A is too complicated. Okay. So there is a theorem of Patrick Bernard giving a case where you can make sure that you have a kind of smoother subsolution. It is the following. So theorem is Patrick Bernard. If A consists of hyperbolic fixed points and or closed orbits, hyperbolic on their energy level, then there exists U, a global critical subsolution with which is CR, which is as smooth as H. Okay. Now what I would like to do is to prove something which is a generalization of that, by showing that the whole problem is concentrated on a neighborhood of A. It would be much better if I could understand what would be the abstraction, if I could get a criterion. Sorry? Recurrent, well, when you have a recurrent orbit, it's an orbit which comes back infinitely often, close to itself. Well, it's on a compact space, so I mean, if okay, you can. It's recurrent positive. Or negative. It will be. No, but here the periodic orbits are closed. These are periodic orbits. So in that case, A, in the case of the theorem, A consists of a finite number of orbits. Okay. Yeah? So I mean here I put on Dojot-Schwarz recurrent orbit because you can have connections between orbits which are, I mean, they can happen even if the dynamic is smooth. I mean, you can prevent homoclinic connections and things of that order. Okay. So now to just give you a statement of theorem I want to prove, I have to introduce what is the Aubry set of a critical subsolution. Okay, now, from what you see, I mean, if you have a critical subsolution, the derivative is Lipschitz with the derivative almost everywhere bounded because the Hamiltonian is superlinear. You bound the Hamiltonian on the derivative by C0, therefore the derivative is bounded uniformly. So this is the set of critical, the set of critical, global critical subsolution is equi-Lipschitz. Okay, so what we can do now, if we have U, a critical, global critical subsolution, we are going to define the two following things, U minus X, and I'm sorry for the minus because in this context it will be more like a plus, but historical reason, which in fact we should rather say U max X with this point of view, but anyway, supremum of V of X, where you take the supremum over all V, global critical subsolution. Okay, and U plus of X, which should be called in fact U minus of X, is the infimum. Sorry, not any, but with V on A is equal to U on A. You look at all the critical subsolution which are equal on the Aubry set to U. You take the biggest value on that and then also the smallest value, so V, global critical subsolution with V restricted to A is equal to U restricted to A. So since A is not empty, so the value of V is fixed at some point, these things are equi-Lipschitz, so what you get is a supremum here and an infimum which are finite and Lipschitz with the same Lipschitz constant. Okay? In fact, these two are global critical subsolution, so U minus and U plus are global critical subsolution. They are even better, in fact, viscosity solutions. I'm not going into that, but I'll tell you a little bit more of the properties later on. Okay. So you just look at all the global critical subsolution which coincide with U on A. There is the biggest one and the smallest one. So there is the set where they all coincide is precisely the set I of U is the set of X where U minus X equal U plus X. Okay, so this is, of course, I mean, this set is the same for U minus, for U plus. It is also the same for any V global critical subsolution with V restricted to A equal U restricted to A. Okay, it's all one and the same set. So this is the projected Aubry set. Of U. Okay. Now, in some sense, I have no flexibility to construct V, to modify U, and keeping it a subsolution on I of U. It's kind of, I am stuck there. So here is the theorem. We'll have to take that into account. So the theorem is the following. Suppose U from M into R is a global critical subsolution. Then there exists U tilde from M into R, global critical subsolution of class CK with U tilde equal U on A if and only if I can solve the problem locally around A. If and only if there exists U1 from U into R, critical subsolution, class CK, U open, of course, containing I of U, and U1 restricted to I of U is equal to U restricted to I of U. So if I can solve the problem locally, I can propagate it globally. Okay. Of what? Well, the potential, you have always the infinite solution, subsolution. Well, you can start to add a cohomology class, and you will still have subsolution. I mean, it's very difficult to give examples again. I mean, you know, it's to visualize something. So let me just show you that it implies this thing, and then I'll give you an example at the end. Okay, so because if I start with the example, I'm going to spend 2 hours on it. So, but if it's in the end, you will be tired and you will ask less details. So. Okay. So the problem with the Aubry sets, in fact, is that you don't really can put your hand on them in general, on explicit examples. Okay, so what I would like to show is that the theorem implies Patrick-Bernard theorem. And for this, in fact, I have to invoke something that is called the weak Hamilton-Jacobi theorem. Let me explain what I mean. If you have a solution of the Hamilton-Jacobi equation, h of x dxu equals c, or with a form, a closed form, okay, its graph is invariant under the Hamiltonian flow. The graph of the derivative is invariant under the Hamiltonian flow. So what happened for weak solution, it's something a little bit different. So as I said, if I just have U, a global critical subsolution, and I construct U minus, then U minus have some special property. And they are the following. You consider the graph of the derivative of U minus. So this is the set of x dx U minus such that, well, dx U minus exists. Okay, so it projects on a set of full measure in M. Now what you can do is look at the closure of the graph. And what happened is that the closure of the graph is backward invariant by the Hamiltonian flow. But it's even a little bit better. The closure goes into the graph right away. It's not very important for what I'm going to say, but, well, it is important a little bit, but not too much. So for every t, strictly positive. So U minus is like a generalized solution of the Hamilton-Jacobi equation, and it loses the property that the graph is invariant in positive and negative time. It's only sub-invariant into negative time. Of course, what you can do when you have something like that, you just take the intersection to get an invariant set. So if I set I tilde of u minus is equal to the intersection phi h minus t for t positive of the graph of du minus, what do I get? I get an invariant set which is not empty, okay? Decreasing intersection of compact set. And in fact, this set, because it's contained in the graph of du minus, is a graph over the base, okay? And of course, the projection. So it's a graph on its projection, but its projection is precisely the projected Aubry set of u minus. Okay? Now, if you just look at this set, so what you have some closed set. You just take the backward orbit and look at the intersection. What can you say about the big set with respect to the small set? It's in the unstable manifold or unstable set. Okay? So what you have is that the graph of du minus is contained in the unstable set or manifold of this invariant set. Yeah? So here is what you get. If you have this weak solution, instead of getting an invariant set, which covers the whole manifold, which is the graph of the manifold, you get an invariant set which is a graph on a smaller part of the manifold, but you get a piece of the unstable set of that set. Okay? Now let me come to why do you have that? Now, why is Patrick Bernard theorem a consequence of what I said? Well, I mean, what you can do is, well, you have to use another fact is that, let's say, proposition, there exists a global critical subsolution with its Aubry set is equal to A. In fact, the intersection of all Aubry sets of global critical subsolution is precisely the Aubry set A. But you can find one. So you look at this one, then you associate to it u minus, and now you try to understand what is u minus. Well, u minus, the graph of du minus is going to be included in the unstable set of these hyperbolic orbits. But due to the convexity of the Hamiltonian, the unstable set of the hyperbolic orbits are graph over the base locally around the orbit. Okay? They are transversal to the vertical. Therefore, in fact, the graph of du coincides locally because it's a derivative of a Lipschitz function which coincides with something which is continuous. So it extends, and in fact, the graph of du minus coincides locally around the orbits with the unstable manifold of the orbit. Therefore, it is of what class of differentiability? The graph of du minus. The differentiability is the same as that of the flow. H is ck. Okay, so H is ck, is Cr, let's say. This implies that the flow is Cr minus 1, so that the unstable manifolds are of differentiability Cr minus 1. So this implies that the graph of du minus is Cr minus 1 near A. Therefore, u minus is Cr near A. And you got your function, which is a critical subsolution. And okay. And that proves now that the Patrick-Bernard theorem is a corollary of what I'm going to show you. Okay. Now, to prove the theorem, so I'm going to prove the theorem now, and I need a way to patch subsolution, critical subsolution. So the proof is in fact extremely simple. I must say that I have known this theorem for several years now, and I had a little bit involved proof, and I was not happy about it. And when I knew I had to come to Rio, I said, I'm going to say something about that, but I don't like the proof, so let's. And I realized that the simple part of the argument was enough to prove the whole theorem. So the proof is quite easy, simple, and it relies on the following procedure to patch absolution, which is given in this proposition. Suppose rho from R into R is non-decreasing. So my English is correct. I didn't say increasing. Yeah, non-decreasing. And it is Lipschitz with Lipschitz constant less than 1. If U1, U2 are two critical subsolutions, let's say, defined on the same open set, then U equal U1 plus rho composed with U2 minus U1 is also a critical subsolution. Okay? So this is from, look, if rho is a constant, it just says that a combination of critical subsolution are critical subsolution, and this is just a parameterized version of the thing. So anyway, I'll give the proof only when rho is C1, because I'm going only to use C infinite rows anyway. But after that, it's not difficult to get the proof by a limiting argument. So I'm assuming rho C1. So what do I know? I know that rho prime T is non-negative because it's non-decreasing, and it's less than 1 everywhere because it's Lipschitz. So that's all I need to know. So, okay, now I just compute the derivative of U almost everywhere. It is, almost everywhere U1 and U2 are differentiable. Rho is differentiable. I can just take the derivative. And its dxu is equal to dxu1 plus rho prime u1 minus u2 at x dxu1 dxu2 minus dxu1. Okay, the order here is important. So what do I get? I get it's 1 minus rho prime of u1 minus u2 x dxu1. I call this alpha. Okay, it's between 0 and 1. And of course, I just get plus alpha dxu2. So if I just evaluate now h of x dxu, I use the convexity of h is less than alpha h of 1 minus alpha. Still works? Okay. So h of x dxu1 plus alpha h of x dxu2. So it's less than C0 almost everywhere. So that's it. I have done almost all the job. I'm going to invoke a Deus ex machina, which is a result we did prove with Antonio Siconolfi a few years ago. And it's very difficult to get smooth solution at the Aubry set where things are stuck. The derivative is stuck, so you just, it is what it is and you can't do anything. But in fact, it's easy to get to make them C infinite outside of the Aubry set. So here is the result with Antonio Ciconolfi. The set of global critical subsolution which are C infinite outside of A is dense for the uniform topology, for the C0 topology, in the set of global critical subsolution. So if you have any global critical subsolution, you can approximate it arbitrarily close by one which is C infinite outside of the Aubry set. In fact, you can also arrange it to be equal to the one you gave yourself before on the Aubry set, but this is not going to be necessary for what we are going to do. But anyway. So here is what I do. I want to prove the theorem now. The theorem involves the proof of superposition. You just have to use this thing twice, to superpose it twice. I'll do it in the wrong order. I mean, so it's better to understand it in the wrong order. And I could have done a global formula, incomprehensible, but I prefer to do an iteration to show the thing. So just two steps. So the first, so let me start now with U, and as I said, and U1 defined on U, which is CK. U contains the Aubry set of U, and U1 is equal U on I of U. Okay, so what I do, if I have U, I can, which is a global critical subsolution, I can get U minus. Okay? Now, what I do, I choose some W open with the following property. So I of U is contained in W, is contained in W bar, which is compact, and this thing here is contained in U. Okay, so first step, I'm going to assume, it's not necessarily true, but I will have to reduce to that case. So I'm going to assume that U minus is larger than U1 on the boundary of W. Okay, so let's make that assumption. And now I will construct a CK subsolution which is equal to U on I of U. How do I do that? I have to choose this function rho, but in fact I will choose the derivative. Well, first, let me just make sure I get the right constant. So let me set for epsilon is the minimum of U minus minus U1 on the boundary of V. Okay, so this is strictly positive. Okay? And what I choose is U hat minus C infinite outside I of A, and U hat minus minus U minus in the C0 norm is less than epsilon, strictly less. Okay? Now I'm going to try to find a function rho and make this type of combination with U1 and this U hat minus. So what will be my function rho? In fact, I will take it as a rho prime. Let me just give you the graph of the rho prime, or maybe first I will just tell you what is important here. So I have U minus at minus U1 is strictly larger than 3 epsilon for on a neighborhood let me call it O1 of boundary of W, okay? Because I just have that this is the distances between these two is at least 4 epsilon. I lose 1 epsilon here when I replace. It's true on boundary of W, but this is strict, so it's true on a neighborhood. So the second thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to call O2 a neighborhood open of I of u on which u minus hat minus u1 is strictly less than epsilon. Okay? This is possible because u minus is equal to u1 on IU. So u minus minus u1 is strictly less than epsilon on IU, so it's true in the neighborhood. And now let me construct the function rho. In fact, I construct rho prime. Here is the graph of rho prime. Okay, so what do? I just take rho prime identically 0 up to epsilon, and here between 0 and 1, and after 3 epsilon, always 1 and C infinite. Okay, so this is 1 here. Okay? So now I construct rho by integrating rho prime. So rho is of t is the integral from 0 to t of rho prime u du. Okay, so from that I just get rho is identically 0 on minus infinity epsilon, and there exists some constant a, because the slope of rho is 1 after 3 epsilon a, such that rho of t is t minus a on 3 epsilon up to plus infinity. Okay? So this is just by the construction. Now let me just look at the function u1, u2, or u tilde, no, this is the u tilde, okay, which is u1 plus rho u hat minus u1. Okay, everything I have here is smooth outside of I of u. Yeah, this is smooth outside of I of u. This is ck. This is ck. So in fact, u tilde is ck on u minus I of u. What happens in that neighborhood O2 of I of u? Well, on that neighborhood for x in O2, u hat minus u1 is less than epsilon, therefore rho of u minus hat minus u1 of x is 0, and yet I get finally that u tilde is u1 on O2. Okay, so it's in fact it's ck. Okay, so u tilde is ck on u and coincide with u on I of u. Now what happens on O1, which is a neighborhood of W, of the boundary of W? On O1, on the contrary, what I have u minus hat minus u1 is larger than 3 epsilon. Therefore, in fact, rho of u hat minus u1 of x is equal to u minus minus u1 of x minus a, okay? Rho of t is equal to t minus a on that interval. Okay? But if I just look now at u tilde, I just get u tilde is u minus hat minus a on O1, which contains, okay, so what I can do is change u tilde and extend it to m in the following way. So I defined u tilde as above on W union O1, which is W bar union O1, on that open set, and u tilde equal u hat minus a on M minus W bar. Okay, so I got this solution which is CK everywhere, critical subsolution, because it's a piecewise critical subsolution. Smooth. Okay, so that's it. So now I have to ensure this condition. Okay, for this I'm going to use the minimum u plus. I will use it to pull away, to change u1 and pull it away on the boundary of W from u minus. Okay? So now I will, so from u1 I take a general u1 and I will get u2 also on u with the property that u minus minus u2 is strict positive on boundary of W. Okay, and then it's finished, okay, now because I can apply the preceding process to u2 and that's it. Well, again, I just have to construct a row, so let me just so note that on the boundary of W is contained in M minus I of u, and therefore u minus minus u plus is strictly positive on the boundary of W. Okay, so I just set again the minimum of u minus minus u plus over the boundary. I call it 4 delta, and this is strictly positive. Okay? Now what I do, I'm going to choose so now we find u hat plus global critical subsolution C infinite outside A, which is included in I of u, and with the property that u plus minus u plus hat infinity is less than delta. Okay? Note that on I of u, u1 minus u plus hat is less than delta. Therefore, there exists O3 open on which this is true, so containing I of u, and open on which u1 minus u plus hat is less than delta. Okay? Now I'm going again to construct a function in the following way. So again, I choose rho prime. So rho prime is going to be 1 till delta. Okay, and then here it's between 0 and 1, and after 3 delta, it is identically 0. So let me just put the graph in a different color, so it looks like that. Okay, and again, so this is rho prime and C infinite, of course, and I just said rho of t is equal to to the integral from 0 to t of rho prime u du. So I get rho of t is t for t less than epsilon, and moreover, because rho is increasing and the derivative is identically 0 after 3 delta, in fact, I have rho of t everywhere is less than rho of 3 delta, which is less, well, it's the integral from 0 to 3 delta of something which is less than 1, so it's 3 less than 3 delta. Okay? So that's what you get. And now, again, if I just take U2 now as a combination, okay, again, this function is ck outside of I of u. Note that U2 is equal to U1 on O3, because on O3, the difference is less than delta, and rho is identity below delta. Okay? So this is U1 minus U plus on O3, and therefore you just get that, so it's ck. And moreover, on boundary of W, well, U2, in fact, is everywhere less than U plus hat plus 3 delta, because this is bounded by 3 delta. But on boundary, but you have U plus minus U plus hat is everywhere less than delta, and U minus minus U plus is larger than 4 delta on boundary of W. Okay, so that tells you, in fact, that U2 okay, is less than U plus at plus 3 delta, and this is less than U minus on the boundary of W. Okay, no time for the example. But I'll just say one word. For the example, I mean, well, if Boris wants, I can explain to him. So what you can do is do the following thing. If you have this Hamiltonian, you can look at change here, okay? Now, what is interesting is, in fact, to look at omega closed. And you define C of omega is CH omega at 0. And if you change omega by a differential of a function, this quantity does not change. So, in fact, C is a map from H1 of MR into R, and in that case, with this example, the minimum of C is the maximum of V. And if you look at C minus 1 of the maximum of V, this is a convex set containing 0 in its interior. Okay? For 0, as I said, you have subsolution 0. Okay, now suppose we make the following assumption. The set where V of x achieves its maximum so this is the Aubry set, is finite. Okay. Now, if this set is finite and all the maxima are non-degenerate, in fact, these maxima represent hyperbolic orbits in the Hamiltonian flow. Okay? And moreover, the Aubry set essentially does not change. A is equal to A omega is equal to A for every omega in this interior. Just constant. So for all this omega, if the orbits are hyperbolic, you can get by Patrick-Bernard theorem CK subsolutions. Critical subsolution. Now, if the dimension is 1, you can do it by hand. If the dimension is 1, so let me just give you the picture of the pendulum. Okay? So this is H, the levels of H. And this set C corresponds to the cohomology class for which you have a form that can be under the singular parts here. And obviously, by taking it 0 near the 2 point, okay, you can have a critical subsolution, okay, which is C infinite here, a graph of this function. Okay, so in dimension 1, it's easy to do. Whatever. I mean, you don't have to suppose that it's non-degenerate. And in fact, you can copy this scheme now using the theorem I gave for higher dimension, for which I don't know how to put, I mean, I don't know how to draw a graph of the differential of the function inside the bulb. I mean, in higher dimension, I have no idea. It's in dimension 1, when M is dimension 1, it's easy. Well, Aubry set is here. The subsolution is here. Yeah, and you want to see what is the U minus and what is the U plus? This is for omega equals 0. So this is the subsolution. What is the maximum one corresponding to this one? Okay, so suppose, I mean, the situation is symmetric, so thing is symmetric with respect to 1/2. This is 0 and 1, okay? It's T, okay? So your manifold is R over Z, it's T. So here is the graph of the derivative of U minus. Okay? So U minus is the minimum. So U minus is the minimum action from a point to the point in the Aubry set. Okay? Since it's periodic, as soon as you go here, the action is shorter that way. So you have a discontinuity here on the derivative. And U plus is, in fact, the other one. Symmetry. Well, in this case, it doesn't tell you anything because you can't construct a C infinite subsolution. But if you go far away from 0, you don't know how to construct smooth subsolution. The theorem does not tell you anything in that example. You have to vary omega. Okay? So, as I said, if you assume that the critical points are non-degenerate, you can use Patrick-Bernard theorem to prove that for all the omega in this open set, you have CK subsolution. And I see no way to do it in higher dimension, like in dimension 1, without applying this theorem. Now, with what I have done, you don't have to assume that the maxima are degenerate. And you can push to the whole of C, to the whole interior of C. Okay? So if you just go to higher dimension, and now let's say we stick on the torus Tn, and you look at H of X, you put a P, the cohomology class. Okay, so this is 1/2 of P plus small p square plus V of X. So this would be the H P of XP. When P varies in a higher dimension, it's extremely complicated because if V is smooth enough for, not for some P, for some, I mean, So you are perturbing an integrable system, you have Kolmogorov-Arnold tori, and in between you have these Aubry sets, which you cannot really describe, but they are still there. And it's almost impossible, I think, to give a complete description of that in higher dimension. Okay, for twist map, you have the Arnold picture. More or less, you think you can understand things. But in higher dimension, we don't understand what is a picture here. Even for a small perturbation in a very high topology, you know that you will be able to apply Kolmogorov-Arnold theorem to get for some P invariant tori, okay? But for the other one, all you know is there is a Aubry set, and you don't know what it looks like. That's it. Now it's my turn to introduce the organizer and to thank them for this third workshop, which has been even nicer than the first one because the weather on Corcovado was great, as I suggested it should be last time. And really, thank you. Thank you a lot. And we hope we will have many returns, many happy returns for everybody. Okay, thank you.